my YouTube video today. I really wanted to actually review and summarize the Amory Wars comics. Now, for those who don't know, the writer is actually the lead singer of Coheed and Cambria. If you guys don't know that band, I would really recommend for you guys to try and listen to them. Most of their albums are basically coincide to a comic book. Now here's the thing, for example, you have one of their albums is called The Second Stage Turbine Blade, and this is the comic book that basically coincides with that album. Each of their albums actually tells a story, which I find it super fascinating for a band to do. Not only is their band amazing in regards to sound and just like everything is just so good, but that's why I highly recommend you guys to actually listen to them. Once you get these comics though, and you actually get the albums, if you're someone who've only actually listened to their music and not their comics, I just want to tell you guys, when you guys read the comics, everything kind of really starts to make sense. It's like, at least that's what I got. I was mind blown. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I was missing. This is what I was missing to put all the pieces together. Now I'm going to have the images of this comics and everything in my head every time I listen to their albums, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So here's the thing. My husband's the one that's a huge Coheed and Cambria band fanatic, like super much. We did see them in concert once, and they are amazing. But anywho, so the lead singer on there, he ended up doing these comics. When he first started the Amory Wars, he did do 2 issues, and things happened. The band kind of started going on tour. So many things, kind of like roadblocks and stuff like that, happened where they couldn't really basically group and redo those issues. Well, at least he wasn't able to do that. But now with new illustrators and everything, he was able to revamp it and kind of bring it back to life again and start all over. I know in here, in this particular album, this is like the deluxe edition one, limited edition, whatever you want to call it. But this is the one that actually has all of the Turbine Blade basically comics in here. But this is the first one actually. But anywho, this one actually starts off, just so I can already let you guys know, because I know I'm going all over the place. I'm talking about the band, I'm talking about the writer, I'm talking about the comics. So anywho, back to Claudio. He did end up doing these comics, and I thought they were just so well written, all of them. So I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. I really enjoyed every single one of them. The one thing about this that I found it very hard to want to even continue, but I was like, no, I gotta push through, is that if you are somebody who either has a child or is very sensitive to things happening to children, yeah, you might not like a certain portion at the beginning of this, but I think after realizing that it was just a comic and it wasn't really like the reality right now, like this wasn't, you know, like it was a comic book. This was something that somebody wrote, and, you know, the storyline and everything. Once I passed that little niche, I ended up going back and diving in and just kind of going through, and I was zooming through these comics. Like, I definitely enjoyed every single one of them. But anywho, this storyline in particular does start off a little bit kind of like boom in your face, but it does explain to you really quickly what is going on in the Amory Wars and what the Amory Wars really is. On here you have the Heaven's Fence, and Heaven's Fence is basically an amount of planets all aligned together, and they're all basically bunched up together and basically connected by what you call the energy, the key work. And the key work basically brings power to each of these planets and life and whatnot. And without it, Heaven's Fence basically wouldn't exist. You do have the price, which are these angelic guardian kind of women that are basically up there, and they are to protect the keyword, to make sure it's working properly. Something really happens and things aren't always what they seem. So then you have Ryan, who's a very evil person, and he basically is a tri-mage, and he decides he wants power for himself and wants to eventually be able to have the power of controlling Heaven's Fence altogether. He ends up doing tons of evil things to try to get through it. But meanwhile, this story will start off with Coheed and Cambria. They're 2 individuals. Coheed is married to Cambria, and not everything is what they seem. They originally think they're the regular suburban family, nothing wrong, everything going fantastic and great, and then until he gets a visit from someone. And this individual comes in and basically tells him, hey, your life isn't what it is, and we need you guys now, because Heaven's Fence right now is basically about to be destroyed and doomed if you don't do what we're telling you to do. He basically gives Coheed a package and says, you know what you need to do, and we'll see you, we'll pick you up, and then we're gonna go on and do what we need to do, which is save the world. Yeah, so that's basically what happens. And the decision that Coheed, once he got home and explained it to Cambria, the decision they ended up making, what they ended up doing, and then they embark on this big adventure. Coheed ends up realizing that something just wasn't right. Same with Cambria. They ended up realizing they have all these powers actually, and they start to use them, and they start to kind of fight against the army that basically took them and are trying to take them to a specific planet or world. And then finally Coheed actually realizes that his brother is still alive. So Inferno also realizes that Coheed is alive, and then they start to recommunicate again. But action just happens, you guys. So much stuff to the storyline happens here, and yeah, it eventually leads to a very, very high point in their adventure and what they do. I do want to say the illustrations here are absolutely amazing. Now, the one thing with this book is it does come with the original issues. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Claudio, when he wrote his first initial books of the second stage Turbine Blade, they were kind of more cartoonish, and he did do 2 issues of them, but then after that he took a pause and he never really went back into it and started to write it fully. But you do have this one, and he did ended up bringing it into this deluxe edition one that I have here, because this is what it is. I mean, you have all the chapters, all the issues basically in one book right here, which is super, super good. But yes, you do have them in here, and I'm going to show you guys just an example of what the illustrations are. If you guys can tell, they are very detailed, but at the same time they're more of a cartoonish kind of comic. And then if you compare it to the original, even right here in the front page, you guys can tell it got really detailed. The illustrations just got like, whoa. I mean, even here in the back you kind of see it, and he decided to kind of revamp them and redo them basically. So you do have those editions at the very, very end as an extra bonus feature, as well as an extra little story. So that I really loved about this, and that's the end of this one. So the other deluxe edition I do got here, or the extra edition, ultimate edition, whatever you want to call it, and it's In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3. So this one starts to get very interesting. Okay, so here's the part where it's really, really tricky not to do spoilers. Now, on this one right here, I didn't end up saying the ending at all, but I do have to tell you guys that the 78 planets that were originally 78 planets are no longer aligned. Now you only have 69. And then on top of it, after the disastrous situation between Coheed and Cambria, you are now left with Claudio, their son, who is the only surviving sibling, and basically he has to try to save the world, but he's not really saving or doing much, because he's in a dump of a planet, grieving his parents, trying to figure out what the fudge happened to his family, because he doesn't know the full story. All he knows is that his mom or dad or whatever, something bad had happened, and yeah, he's just kind of dealing with that. And then you have Inferno, which he has his rebel army. He's back here, and he basically starts to protect the price, the last of the 10 price that they have. They're trying to protect them. They're trying to also beat and get Ryan, the evil guy. So anywho, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get that. And meanwhile, you also have Ambelina to basically give up her wings as a prize and to go after Claudio and look for him and try to guide him and help him. Because he is going to be the crowing, and they needed him to kind of step up and do what he needs to do. So Ambelina ends up doing that, and she definitely starts to watch and guard over him, while at the same time having another Tri-Mage, which mage or whatever you want to call him, because you can't really call him a mage anymore, because now they turned into creatures. Ryan kind of turned or put some kind of infection in them, and they start turning into creatures where they kind of shed. But one of these creatures is following Claudio and keeps trying to take him out, but you have Ambelina, who is basically protecting him and following this creature that's trying to get Claudio. So you have that going on amongst other actions that is happening with the price and with Ryan being evil and everything. So that's what's going on this book. Now, also what you will see is that Inferno in this book starts to actually make his own, which you would say kids, even though it's not really kids. They're called iRobots, and there is 2. One is a little girl named Chase, which is weird because their age doesn't match their features, and that will be later explained in here. But it's when science basically and technology evolves with DNA, and you kind of make these beings. So Inferno did that, but you do have, like I said, Chase. She's a girl, and then the boy is called Sizer. And yeah, it's just how they both also make a huge part of this storyline as well. But I don't want to say too much, you guys. I know I'm gonna end up like blowing it up and like telling you guys too much. But in this particular extras that we get in this particular deluxe edition, we do basically get just illustrations. That's all we get on this one. So you do see a couple of extra little illustrations here. You could even tell how it first started to get illustrated and stuff. So that's what we get here at the end of this book, which I really, really love. Okay, so on this last section of comics that I wanted to talk about, this one is The Good Apollo on Burning Star 4, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness. Now, this one I didn't get a deluxe edition. I don't think they had one of those. It was just these three. They haven't did one of those. Though I'm pretty sure if they get, I don't know, if they make it into this and they have some little extras and stuff, I might actually invest and actually get it. But for right now, I just have these three, but it does have all 12 chapters, all 12 issues basically of them in here. So that's really good. And now in this last edition, Chandra, which is Claudio Sanchez's wife, she actually takes part in the writing of this as well. Now, the one thing I do have to say with these illustrations still look absolutely amazing and on point, but this one you might get a little bit lost. I feel like this one you really I would highly recommend to take your time on this one. This is almost like the very first chapters of the Turbine one. It's a lot to follow. It's like, oh, okay, so it does get a little bit more complicated on this one in particular. It was a little bit harder to follow, but I did catch on pretty good, and I understood it at the very end. I kind of saw everything. I was like, okay, I get it now. But you do have Claudio right here, you have one of the Price here, and you have Chase right here, one of the iRobots, and then you also have the writer, which comes into play, and here's the evil Ryan. And this is basically the first volume. Now we also have the second volume right here. When things got a lot more intense, they get into quite a few issues right here. As you guys can tell, I think the artwork, oh my gosh, you guys, love the artwork. And then the finale, the third volume right here. But anywho, so this storyline, you basically already have most of the Price just almost gone. So Inferno and his rebel army are really trying to protect the last little bit of Price that they even have. So they're trying to protect them from Ryan, because of course Ryan, the biggest thing is to take control of all of basically Heaven's Fence, and in able to do that, he needs to get rid of the Price. And now in this one, Claudio's struggling with being the Crowing. He doesn't really believe it, but he does know he has some powers that he never knew he had. So Ambelina's starting to teach him to try to channel his powers and to be able to control them and figure out what his potential is. Meanwhile, Claudio just kind of struggles with that a lot, and eventually he has to kind of get himself together, like big time. But here's the twist of events with this storyline, is that now you don't just have one story going, a war or whatever in this world, but there's another world. Later on it explains, but basically you have a mentally unstable individual that has a girlfriend, and he's trying to write the story, and it's just how he hallucinates or he visualizes things, he sees things, and he doesn't want to take his medications, he doesn't want to take care of himself. So the writer is trying to finish off his stories, and he's struggling. And at the end of the day, you basically, it's weird because it's kind of a mix of reality and not reality, because it's what's in his head and what's really going on also, which kind of confuses you. So you're trying to deal with that story, and then you're trying to deal with the actual storyline of this. So now you have two stories going separately, and it kind of gets a little bit complicated and a little bit confusing. That's why I'm saying you might have to probably take your time reading this to really understand what's what. This writer has a girlfriend, and you have him kind of hallucinating because he doesn't want to take care of himself, he doesn't want to take his medications, he doesn't want to see his doctor, and he ends up basically visualizing his bike into this fire kind of skull looking thing, and it's kind of manipulating him to do things that he probably shouldn't be doing. So I don't want to say any more than that because I feel like it would be a spoiler galore in this video. Let's just say things get very complicated, not only for the writer, but also in the story itself. So yeah, a lot of things starts to happen. You're gonna find out who the actual writer is in the story as you keep reading along. Like I said, these comics, I wouldn't say they're for beginners for sure. This is your very first time getting into comics. I would say take it very slowly, like I said before, and don't push yourself. Really try to grasp the whole storyline and try to follow through. Take your time reading each of the tidbits and stuff, because it can get very complicated very, very easy. But once you get the flow of things, it is such a good storyline. Very, very good. I feel like in this last one, there was just so much to tell, so it got a little bit like complicated. The storyline got complicated, but I enjoyed it. That's another thing. It's like, don't get me wrong, don't get me twisted. Don't feel that I probably did like actually dislike this. I didn't. It just made so much more sense what's going on over here, how the 79 planets even got involved, the price, the mage, everything just kind of starts to kind of make sense now, and you're like, oh, I get what the story is about or where it came from or what. Actually, I kind of want to see what else happens. Like, I really hope that they make another one, or another issues or whatnot. Like, I would be very intrigued to see how the story can progress from there, because I feel like it has so much potential to do so. Okay, so now that I'm finished up with this, I just want to say illustrations, phenomenal, storyline, great. Definitely not for a beginner in comics. I would definitely recommend you to kind of slow down and take your pace and everything, and you would definitely enjoy it. It would be very well rewarded. I also recommend to listen to their albums, because it definitely makes so much sense when you add that and the comics together. It's like, oh my gosh, it's almost like an illustration in your head, like a movie theater in your head. Just imagine that. Like, that is how great these things kind of combine together. It's absolutely amazing. Now here's the thing. They do have a prequel novel, and it's called Year of the Black Rainbow. And now that novel is no longer printed anymore, so it's out of print. So that means it's now considered a collector's item or a limited edition item, or basically a very expensive item. You cannot find that book anymore for anything under the $200. Like, you can. It's either $200. I've even seen some people try to sell that novel for $5,000, and it is absolutely crazy. Anywho, I will talk about that novel on a separate video. I'm going to do a review and stuff like that on that. I should be getting it very soon, actually, because I was able to find it, which, thank goodness. I don't know what the heck happened, but I was able to find it at a really good price compared to the $200. Yeah, that was a very lucky find. But anywho, when I actually read that one, I am going to do a review on it and talk about it. But it is the prequel of all of the Amory War storyline and stuff like that. So it's like the before all of this happened. So I'm very intrigued to read that novel and kind of give you guys a feedback on that one. So if you guys are interested, definitely stay tuned for that. But anywho, I'm going to conclude this video. I'm getting really, really hot. We're trying to stay warm in here while it's freezing out there, so you guys stay really warm out there. But yeah, so other than that, I'm going to conclude this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did, definitely give it a like. I would really, really appreciate that. Also, subscribe if you want to see more content from me, and click that notification button if you want to get notified every time I upload. So until next time, you guys, toodles!